Hey everybody, it's Laura Doucette, nutritionist and first-year medical student here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And today I wanted to share with you one of my new favorite recipes that I really was skeptical about at first. And it's a carnivore bread recipe made of entirely animal products and some salt. So I'm going to share it with you, even if you're not doing carnivore, but you're trying to avoid things like I would need to avoid for my nickel allergy. I can't have grains. I can't have nuts. A lot of people use nuts to try to make like nut flours to make bread. I can't do that. My boyfriend was the one who tried it first. He made it and I was really skeptical, and we adjusted it a little bit. But the recipe originally came from asheats.com. If you want to check it out, I'll try to remember to put the link below. Our recipe is slightly different. It uses more butter. So you can also use ghee instead, but anyway, this was my first time making this recipe, but it turned out amazing. We've done a lot with them so far, but I think there's even more that you can do. Like we've just used it as toast, just adding butter. I'd heat up a slice and add butter to it, or you could do butter with honey drizzled over it if you have honey in your diet, or we did like an avocado toast with egg, and that was really good. I think you could also make like little mini pizzas out of it if you do have tomato in your diet. It is a fruit, so if you're doing meat and fruit, it would probably work for you. This recipe does take more steps and it makes more of a mess to clean up than I normally like, but it is so good and such a great way to add protein and variety to a carnivore heavy diet. It's worth it to make it once or twice a month, I think. So I like to get all of the ingredients ready. So for this recipe, we use 5 ounces of pork rinds, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 pound of ground pork, and 1 big stick of butter. And we just use Kerrygold. Now this is a big difference from other recipes. The original recipe calls for 1/4 cup of butter. So, you could try that first if you want. All of the instruments that I used a blender, a mixer, a gallon bag with rolling pin or a masher or a bottle to help mash the pork rinds up a little bit before you put them in the blender, but you can just throw them all in the blender if you want. We just found that that was a little bit more cumbersome, and if you break them up a little bit better first, then it works better. And then also you just want a mixing bowl, and I used a little bit of olive oil to coat my bread pan. You could also use any other animal fat. I was just in a hurry, so I used the olive oil. So the instructions on how I did this. So first, I grind the pork rinds, and like I said, I put them in a bag first and try to crush them with my hands and then crush them with a masher that I have. My boyfriend used just like a bottle of wine that we had and just used that to crush them, just whatever you got around. And I got those down to some small pieces. I put them in the blender and blended them up really fine, and then put them in a bowl and added the salt and kind of mixed that in. Then I went to start melting the butter in a pan, and I put the pork in the blender. Then you want to separate the eggs, where you put yolks in the blender and whites in a big mixing bowl alone. And I like to separate my eggs with my hands, so you can kind of break the egg between your hands and it will help roll the white right off of the yolk. After I'm done with that, that's probably around the time I would start preheating the oven. I still haven't found the perfect time to do that. I always end up having the oven ready a little bit longer than I would like before I'm ready to put the bread in. Then you want to mix up the pork and the egg yolks, and this you would do in the blender. And it turns into this kind of weird pink paste. And then you want to whip the egg whites, and it's going to take a couple of minutes, as you can see in this video. I keep stopping and testing it, and what you want to do is you want to pull out the blender and see if the whites are forming little peaks on their own that kind of stand up a little bit. So the more that they're able to stand really stiffly as you pull it away, then the fluffier your bread is going to be, okay? So then when that's done, you kind of add the pork mixture into that egg white and mix that up with your mixer. And once that's mixed in, then you're gonna fold in the pork rind crumble. So I just do like maybe 1/4 of the pork rind crumble at a time and fold that in gently and until all of the pork rind is in there. Then you can grease your bread pan. Really, you could do that anytime. And then put in the mix and try to, even it out so it's about the same all around. And then put it in the oven for 60 minutes or until it has a dry, bready consistency. I didn't have a toothpick for this video, but I did use something to poke it and pull it out. And if it comes out clean, then you're good. Then you want to let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes. You may want to drain the pork buttery fluid into your bacon grease jar for later use, or whatever jar you use for grease, before you slice it. Then you can store it in the fridge for up to 5 days. Here are just a couple of videos, or like a couple of shots of different meals that we have done with the carnivore bread in our meal. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Definitely subscribe if you like this content and give it a thumbs up. All right, take care. Bye.